Thank you, Bruce. I have to say, I think one of the best things about following a talk like Ted's, which was fantastic, is that it's hard to really have much worse news than that. So, I can talk about all the failures I want here, and you guys will be cheering on me. I'm going to take you through a little journey here. Maybe this will be a little bit more spiritual than science related here, but it'll have some implications. There's a butterfly on the front there, so if you're looking for rare plants, I actually cut out a little bit of the clarkia section because there's a much more eloquent and fantastic speaker talking about that, Lou Stringer, at the end of this session. So no pressure, Lou. But I'm going to talk about perennial lupines and in terms of offering hopeful insights to restoration ecology. A lot of this thought actually was seated in Michael Soulet's keynote, where he started to introduce and talk about the concept of the Anthropocene and our human involvement. And everything he was saying in that talk made me think I am probably exactly flipped from him in a lot of ways, and I see us in a very hopeful age. I know we're undergoing a lot of environmental change, but that's why I want to share this story. And this is a little picture of San Francisco. It's a drawing from 1876, and you can see that it's quite well developed at that point. Mission blues were well distributed throughout this area, so this is oriented that, if you will, this is the actual Golden Gate. Mount Diablo kind of looks like Mount Whitney over there, or the Matterhorn if you're of European descent. And the Mission Blues ventured through here, and the grasslands through here, and then down through San Bruno and farther south. That said, there was a lot of human habitation at that point already, and people loved living in San Francisco. It was a beautiful place. That's why we moved here. We moved here for the nature, and in 2014, people say that that's why they moved to the Bay Area, because it's a beautiful place. So, Twin Peaks, 1903, Mount Davidson. This is looking from the south to the north. This is Twin Peaks right here. This is an old dairy farm. You can see a little bit of scrub. Most of this is grassland. You get a sense of vegetation here, some thinner soils. But a fair amount, a healthy mosaic of grassland where lupines can occur. Also a disturbance regime which promotes lupines, so the grazing, probably a very light land use through here. And as we know, lupines tend to like that kind of environment. Also notably the fog, which will be a key element going forward. This is a 1938 aerial image, fantastic image set for anybody looking for old aerials of San Francisco. And here you can already start to see some of the site constraints. So what's happening here is obviously you have development to either side. This was the direction we were looking from before, but this is Twin Peaks now. And then 2014, you can see it's reduced to very small habitat. With very few corridors. In fact, one might argue no corridors for this type of butterfly that is a very poor flyer. And on top of that, well, you have this habitat that's, and this site, this preserve that's located at the top of the hill. There's very little disturbance that goes on there. The soils are very different. The climate becomes very different where you have a lot more wind. There are a lot of biotic constraints being placed on the organisms there. So this is the plant that I'm featuring in this talk, and this is Lupinus albifrons. It's one of 3 host plants that hosts the mission blue butterfly. And part of what I wanted to talk about in this talk is also spreading out and thinking a little bit bigger than how powerful our botany and our skills and our restoration efforts become, especially when you can link to next trophic levels and to new kingdoms. So in this case, Lupinus albifrons is a silverbush lupine, well-distributed plant throughout the central coast. The other lupines that occur on site are, there's only one that natively occurs there, and that is Lupines variecolor. The mission blues definitely prefer this as a host plant, and they actually can complete their entire life cycle on this plant. Here is a mission blue, to steal a term from a mentor of mine, Stu Weiss. This is a charismatic mesofauna. This is these beautiful things. They're very similar to acmens, which are much more common, or a lot of other lysinids. Highly constrained and highly evolved to live in this environment with these lupines. In this case, this is kind of an emblematic picture of this species on Twin Peaks, because oftentimes it can be windy, and what you see these blues doing is hiding and kind of protecting themselves from the wind down there. Again, latching on to silverbush lupines. That's where they're laying their eggs as adults. That's your number one mission once you become an adult. Also knowing that there's a potential to provide a nectar source if needed. Is a nectar plant, and part of the system, Sidalcia. These checker mallows are out there. It also uses lupines, like I said. It will also use a number of other Areogonums and so on for nectar. Interestingly, this butterfly seems to do quite a bit of egg laying without actually putting down any, without a huge need for kind of refueling on nectar. And a lot of butterflies seem to get a lot of their initial eggs out very early on, very quickly, and then if conditions are good, wind, they've eluded predation, then they can stick around a little longer and will nectar a little bit more. Here's our charismatic mesofauna, and its fourth instar. Actually, very few people have seen a mission blue, so you can, in its larval state, so you can be one of them now. But again, it spends its life right there. It's right in the lupines. It lays its eggs, because it hatches. It goes through two instars, eating the mesophilic tissue of the lupines. That's very important. There need to be new leaves. There needs to be active growth. And then they actually climb down the stem, or maybe just fall off sometimes, and burrow down in this soil or any of these cracks over summer. And then come out once the lupin starts to grow actively again. That's called a diapause stage. Comes out at third instar, eats a bunch, comes at fourth instar, and then goes through metamorphosis and comes out as an adult in April. So it's a full year life cycle, and that's an important element to this. So what's going on with the habitat here? Well, specifically on Twin Peaks, as I said, a highly constrained habitat. We're finally getting to plants. This is good, huh? And what you see here is a lot of the coastal scrub, and this is high quality habitat in San Francisco. Artemisia, Californica here, a fair amount of Baccharis in there, but here's our Lupinus albifrons. And at these edges, you will very directly see, you will see direct competition, and oftentimes as you pull away some of these more recent layers of invasion or pushes of invasion of the scrub, you'll find lupins underneath there. So that's the kind of pressure that's going on this site. Here's what happens in the DoNothing scenario. So this is a site in 2008 that had 289 lupins. In 2013, it is a mess of blackberry, and there's a little bit of Baccharis that's succeeded in there. I believe there's some Carpobrotus. This transition is very fast. It didn't work very well, but so invasion can be fast, brutal, and humbling. And I think one of the keys to this is that so can humans. And this is kind of one of the more positive aspects I wanted to spin off this. So what we've done is we created a pretty unique little volunteer program. And one of the main things we're trying to do is reverse grassland loss due to habitat succession. So we're spending a lot of time removing scrub. We're bringing volunteers out. We're bringing kids out. They're bringing their shovels out, and we are mechanically removing and pulling back Baccharis in some of these key critical areas. This is all predicated on the fact that there have been several critical areas identified by Creekside Science and San Francisco Parks and Rec as places where the Mission Blues do really well. Out of the wind, because they don't like it on the summit, and having a fair amount of grassland around them. So we are, what you will, dabbling at the edges. So our action here is we're controlling nascent foci. So anywhere we see Baccharis invading in these small patches, that is the material we're attacking first. Next, we contain edges of the large patches and define those. And then we start to cut away at those defined edges and remove a little bit more, and we're reseeding and planting throughout this. So this is a very slow, iterative process. This is not something that you're going to do in 1 year, rip everything out and reseed and hope for the best and look at numbers and say, oh great, we got 10% survivorship. We are doing this very slow, very organically, and very intentionally with people that particularly are interested in volunteering. Our biggest kicker is we're requiring a 1 year volunteer commitment, and we don't make them sign anything in blood. So far we've had just about every single person that signed up has committed through that period. They get to go through the whole life cycle. They get to see it through the beautiful wildflower periods. They get to see the site when it's desiccated. They get to see the site when it's weedy with brassica. They get to then see it when the annual grasses flush. This is the single best way to captivate and educate people, and people are excited about it. Why? Because we have a wait list. So people email us, they want us to get on this. We're sorry we have to wait list you. And they're so excited about that. I love it. And actually this is a site, this is looking down, so this is looking towards the south. This is actually San Bruno Mountain here. This is Twin Peaks, and this is the initial loop. This is where we've done some grassland restoration, and then this is the main ridge where we've done a lot of our work. And you can see all the little silver here is actually Lupinus albifrons. And these are areas we're starting to work way at. But you can see the constraints here. Very, very limited habitat for the grasslands. The lupin does not compete well in the scrub. All right, so this program was pretty much initiated with translocation of butterflies. So Creekside Science had worked on moving butterflies from a host population in San Bruno Mountain to here. And it had gone through, I believe, 3 years of translocations of adults. With that, there was an initiation of a lupin survey. Get an idea how many lupins are out on Twin Peaks. And over the course from 2008 to 2013, there had been some planting effort, but with the slow, regular disturbance, the sequential work that's being done there, both by staff and volunteers now, there's been about a 25% increase in the lupins. And then with that, this is kind of our big take home here, is that in here, you can see we pretty much flatlined, and these are adults observed. With the initiation of translocation and some habitat restoration work, we are now estimating that we're carrying a population somewhere around 80 to 100 individuals there on a fairly small site, yet with very high quality habitat. Eggs have been also a monitoring mechanism we've used, and we've seen egg numbers. So interestingly here, it's a fairly cryptic butterfly that we learned, even where it flatlined over there with adults, we still were spotting eggs. So there's a chance that there were still some baseline adults out there. Obviously, well, there had to be, because the egg didn't come from the egg. Came from the chicken. So Anyway, we managed to skyrocket up into around the 1,000 egg range, which is pretty dramatic, even on a logarithmic scale. We're talking about 3- to 4-fold increase. So it comes back to this idea of human impacts. And what were the human impacts here? Well, we had a rapid response to not phonological cues, but phenological cues. So when it was time to get out there and pull the weeds so that they didn't set seed, we had volunteers out there and ready. When it's time to cut the grass before the annual grasses before they set seed without disturbing the soil, they were out there doing it. And they were able to reverse succession. Humans also we were able to move in situ materials when needed, seed collection. So we're pulling the arbitrary out of nature here. Instead of those lupine seeds falling down there and dribbling below that artemisia, we're pulling them out to an open area. We're helping scarify them, and we're getting them going. So we're really, this group of folks is really working hard to optimize all these conditions. Drought abatement response. In these really bad years, we're watering. It's small enough of a habitat. We're lucky enough to be surrounded by volunteers and people that care, people that are enthused, that we can do this. You just can't do this in the middle of Tahone. You can't do this in the middle of the Mojave. It's a lot different of a scene. So these are all very positive human impacts and having this density. With that, we've found increased environmental awareness. People are walking up and down the trail talking about it. We're getting increased funding. There's increased compassion for the work we're doing and conservation. This is absolutely a win-win-win in so many ways. You know, and this is one story. I know I have to finish up here. This is one of the most heartwarming things I've had happen to me. Is I had somebody bring out a picture to me of a site that they wanted to restore, and that's what it looked like 40 years ago. People care. People are deeply vested. This person held this picture on their fridge, in their cabinet, in their favorite book, and we're just waiting to hand it to someone who cared. So, you know, kind of my hope and positive message for people here that were willing to spend 20 minutes with me is that we as humans, by virtue of our values, consciousness, intelligence, are an integral component of this system. And we are the ideal adaptive manager. And being in these urban constraints, these environments which are so heavily impacted, on the flip side of the coin, are the environments that often we have the most ability to succeed in and make the biggest impact. So with that, I want to say thanks to Creekside, certainly the volunteers, Parks and Rec. I had the East Bay Park District in here because they were doing the clarkia part of things, but Liam O'Brien, a lepidopterist, Fish and Wildlife Services provided funding for this, and the CNPS checkers. Thank you.